Hey, second grade. I'm still up here in my attic, trapped. Hundreds of witches out there. I don't know what to do. If you have any ideas, please let me know. Let me know now. I don't know what to do. How could this get any worse? I don't know. Let's sit quietly and listen. Wait to find out.
Chapter 7 frizzled like a fritter. All the women, or rather the witches, were now sitting motionless in their chairs and staring as though hypnotized at somebody who had suddenly appeared on the platform. That somebody was another woman. The first thing I noticed about this woman was her size. She was tiny, probably no more than 4.5 feet tall. She looked quite young. I guessed about 25 or 6, and she was very pretty. She had on a rather stylish long black dress that reached right to the ground, and she wore black gloves that came up to her elbows. Unlike the others, she wasn't wearing a hat. She didn't look to me like a witch at all, but she couldn't possibly not be one. Otherwise, what on earth was she doing up there on the platform, and why? For heaven's sake, were all the other witches gazing at her with such a mixture of adoration, awe, and fear? Very slowly, the young lady on the platform raised her hands to her face. I saw her gloved fingers unhooking something behind her ears, and then she caught hold of her cheeks and lifted her face clean away. The whole of that pretty face came away in her hands. It was a mask. As she took off the mask, she turned sideways and placed it carefully upon a small table nearby, and when she turned round again and faced us, I very nearly screamed out loud. That face of hers was the most frightful and frightening thing I had ever seen. Just looking at it gave me the shakes all over. It was so crumpled and wizened, so shrunken and shriveled, it looked as though it had been pickled in vinegar. It was a fearsome and ghastly sight. There was something terribly wrong with it, something foul and putrid and decayed. It seemed quite literally to be rotting away at the edges, and in the middle of the face, around the mouth and cheeks, I could see the skin all cankered and worm-eaten, as though maggots were working away in there. Yikes, this does not sound good for our character. He needs to get out of there. There are times when something is so frightful you become mesmerized by it and can't look away. I was like that now. I was transfixed. I was numbed. I was magnetized by the sheer horror of this woman's features. But there was more to it than that. There was a look of serpents in those eyes of hers as they flashed round the audience. I knew immediately, of course, that this was none other than the Grand High Witch herself. I knew also why she had worn a mask. She could never have moved around in public, let alone book at a hotel with her real face. Everyone who saw her would have run away screaming. "The doors!" shouted the Grand High Witch in a voice that filled the room and bounced around the walls. "Are they chained and bolted?" "The doors are chained and bolted, your Grand Highness," answered a voice in the audience. The brilliant snake's eyes that were set so deep in that dreadful rotten worm-eaten face glared unblinkingly at the witches who sat facing her. Wow, blink is your base. Unblinkingly. A lot of prefixes and suffixes there. "You may remove your gloves," she shouted. Her voice, I noticed, had that same hard, metallic quality as the voice of the witch I had met under the conker tree, only it was far louder and much, much harsher. It rasped, it grated, it snarled, it scraped, it shrieked, and it growled. Everyone in the room was peeling off her gloves. I was watching the hands of those in the back row. I wanted very much to see what their fingers looked like, and whether my grandmother had been right. Ah, yes, I could see several of them now. I could see the brown claws curving over the tips of the fingers. They were about 2 inches long, those claws, and sharp at the ends. "You may remove your shoes," barked the Grand High Witch. I heard a sigh of relief going up from all the witches in the room as they kicked off their narrow, high-heeled shoes. And then I got a glimpse under the chairs of several pairs of stockinged feet, squarely and completely toeless, Revolting they were, as though the toes had been sliced away from the feet with a carving knife. "You may remove your wigs," snarled the Grand High Witch. She had a peculiar way of speaking. There was some sort of a foreign accent there, something harsh and guttural, and she seemed to have trouble pronouncing the letter W. As well as that, she did something funny with the letter R. She would roll it around and around her mouth like a piece of hot pork crackling before spitting it out. "Remove your wigs and get some fresh air into your spotty scalps," she shouted. And another sigh of relief arose from the audience as all the hands went up to the heads, and all the wigs, with the hats still on them, were lifted away. There now appeared in front of me row upon row of bald female heads, a sea of naked scalps, every one of them red and itchy-looking from being rubbed by the linings of the wigs. I simply cannot tell you how awful they were, and somehow the whole sight was made more grotesque because underneath those frightful scabby bald heads the bodies were dressed in fashionable and rather pretty clothes. It was monstrous. It was unnatural. Oh heavens, I thought, oh help, oh Lord, have mercy on me. These foul, bald-headed females are child-killers, every one of them, and here I am imprisoned in the same room, and I can't escape.
The Grand High Witch. I guess it could get worse, and she is hideous. Oh, took off her whole face. Oh, giving me shivers. Oh, gotta keep it down. They're taking off their wigs. They're taking off their gloves. I know for sure that these are witches. This is not good. Again, Mr. Bulldog is doing a great job of making a frightening tale pretty scary. Lots of body horror. Things are happening with body parts. Oh, giving me chills. I gotta keep quieter though. They'll hear me. Okay? So, you guys, stay safe. Avoid witches. Don't go into conference rooms at hotels if there's no one in there, because who knows what's gonna come in on you. Find a safe place to train your mice. I'll see you next time if I make it out.